Yeah, YouTube, what's going on? Welcome to the show. Please donate, please. I beg you for likes and subscriptions all the time, but this one is much more important. Donate to St. Jude, a little donate button on the chat. And of course, we have an eBay store that we're going to promote for you as well. See us here, Jamie, Heath, and me. We'll help you out with your draft if you donate, if you bid on it on ebay.com. Again, we'll throw a link in the episode chat. And there's a QR code. Yeah, hit the QR code. Today is wide receiver preview part 2. So let's get it started right now, as the Black Eyed Peas would say, in here on Fantasy Football Today. And we welcome you to the second part of our wide receiver preview. And a happy Friday, everybody. Hope you enjoyed some preseason football last night. I know Traylon Burks did. He got a lot of run in last night's game. Welcome to the show. Yesterday, we spoke a little more generally about the wide receiver position and that some strategies, different formats, those types of things. Today, we're going to look at average draft position from Cooper Kupp all the way on down. And in fact, since the beginning of August, Justin Jefferson is the number one wide receiver, basically tied with Cooper Kupp in NFC average draft position. So we'll talk about that. Happy Friday, Jamie and Heath. You guys ready for the weekend?
Yes.
Preseason weekend?
Yeah, man. Last night was fun.
I get to hold my breath through one quarter of Chiefs football because Andy Reid wants to play as starters. So we'll make sure that nothing happens to Patrick Mahomes.
You were about to say Andy Dalton. You really were about to say Andy Dalton.
You love Andy Dalton.
I do. I've got an affinity for Andy Dalton. He's been underrated most of his career.
I've got an Andy Dalton stat that's relevant to today's show.
I've got a Baker Mayfield stat that's relevant to today's show.
Okay, good, because I don't know why that's a weird segue. But Andy Dalton, we were talking about Amari Cooper and what he did with Andy Dalton as his quarterback. Can he do that with Jacoby Brissett? Well, Amari Cooper in 11 games without Dak Prescott in 2020 was on pace in 17 games for 82 catches, 1,066 yards, and 6 touchdowns on 116 targets. Not terrible. Worth drafting, worth using. Over 1,000 yards, not bad. Andy Dalton in those games, he actually missed 2 games, but in the 9 games that he played, he was on pace for only 3,889 yards in 17 games. That is so not good. But 26.
Oh my gosh, that would be the most career years for Jacoby Brissett.
I know. Jacoby Brissett, his 17-game pace in 2017 and 2019 was about 3,500 yards. So even though that wasn't great for Dalton, that was so much better than anything Jacoby Brissett has done. And that is a weird way to start the show. All right, so I want to get right into it, guys, so we can talk about all the players we need to talk about. I want to give you guys some noteworthy stats about wide receivers, and you tell me basically what you think about it. First of all, where are the top 12 wide receivers drafted? Most of them are drafted in the first 6 rounds. Last year was an exception. We had 4 wide receivers last year in full PPR, because that's Hunter Renfrow and Jalen Waddle included, and they were only top 12 in full PPR. Definitely Waddle. 4 wide receivers drafted after round 6 that finished top 12. That's as many as the previous 3 seasons combined. So usually it's 1, maybe 2 guys after round 6 in a 12-team league. So that's 72 picks that finished top 12. Fine, whatever. Offense matters. Of the 72 top 12 wide receivers in PPR over the last 6 seasons, right? So 12 per year for 6 seasons. Only 15% were on offenses that ranked 20th or lower in scoring. And we talked about this months ago. I've brought this stat up a lot, but we have new listeners now. So again, last 6 years, every top 12 receiver, I looked at them all. Where did their offense rank? That's 72 receivers over 6 years. Only 15% of them, 11 total, were on offenses that ranked 20th or lower in scoring. So Heath, I would say that offense matters a lot more at wide receiver than it does at running back. And what do you make of that statistic?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're in a bad offense, you better just absolutely dominate targets. Is what I would say.
Mooney, right?
What's that?
That's a Darnell Mooney note, right?
That is a Darnell Mooney. Although even Darnell Mooney last year wasn't particularly good on a per game basis.
Anything else? Does it have you gravitate towards Allen Robinson and Mike Williams over Terry McLaurin, for example? one guy's a number one, and those other guys.
Yeah, but I think you got to extend that though a little bit. Like, how bad did the best player on did Darnell Mooney finish last year? The Darnell Mooneys of the world, bad offenses that still had huge volume.
Well, he wasn't. I don't think he was a top 30 wide receiver per game. But you'd expect their offense to be better this year. Well, you'd hope it. You're hoping, and you'd hope for him to be better too. Darnell Mooney last year was 23rd, 24th overall, but 32nd per game in PPR, and very similar in non-PPR. He had 140 targets in 17 games. He only caught 4 touchdowns.
Because I think it's just relative to what your expectations are. I think the 3 you brought up are relevant because Williams, Sutton, and you say Williams, Sutton, and
I said Williams, Robinson, but yeah, Sutton. All
right, Williams, Robinson, and McLaurin. I have Williams and Robinson ranked ahead of McLaurin. I don't know about you, Heath, but in terms of my expectations, I would love for all 3 of them to be top 10 receivers, but I guess if I'm ranking them who has the most likelihood to be top 10, I would probably go back and forth on this, but Robinson, Williams, and then McLaurin. I'm not expecting McLaurin to be a top 10 receiver because I'm not drafting him close to that range.
See, the other 2 guys are close to that range. I have a harder time imagining Robinson being top 10 if Kupp doesn't get hurt.
So can we just use top 12? I don't know if it makes a big difference, but that's
sure.
I was referencing.
Same.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not easy to have 2 top 12 receivers on one team. But that statistic that I gave would suggest that you should favor the better offense. Oh, that's one way to interpret it anyway.
I would say the better offense, if you're talking about a group of number 1 wide receivers, favor the better offense. If you're talking about a group of number 2 wide receivers on their own team, favor the better offense. I'm not sure I'm ready to say that statistic says put the number 2 over the number 1. Part of the appeal for Mike Williams for me is that I'm not 100% certain he's going to be the number 2.
Oh, you think he could be the number 1?
You think he'd be the 1, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's really possible for Allen Robinson, probably.
How about this stat? We get a top 5 wide receiver, a guy who finishes top 5 from the 39 through 50 range in ADP almost every season. 39 through 50, we get a guy there almost every year that finishes top 5. Most of them are usually in their 3rd, 4th, or 5th seasons. So Cooper Kupp was in that group last year, and you could be looking at a guy like Deontay Johnson this year. I think Terry McLaurin is in that range. DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton, depending on the website. Allen Robinson is not in his 3rd, 4th, or 5th year, but he's in that range. Marquise Brown, Gabriel Davis has crept up into that range. Brandon Cooks has crept up in that range. So anyway, 39 to 50, we get a top 5 wide receiver almost every year. And then this one really surprised me. If you I looked at the last 3 seasons, and every running back and every wide receiver drafted in rounds 2 and 3 in a 12-team league. And the running backs were much better values. I could not believe it, but 51% of the wide receivers that have been drafted in rounds 2 to 3 since 2019 have finished outside the top 24 at wide receiver. And only 28% of running backs drafted in that range have finished outside the top 24 at running back. And I will say that we've had a pretty similar amount of running backs and wide receivers. I think it was like 1 running back more or something like that. And you're deeper into the running back pool than you are at wide receiver. So this shocked me. Because people think, wide receiver safer than running back, but in recent history in rounds 2 and 3, wide receiver has been, half of them in the last 3 years have been busts. Almost all of them have been injury busts. I will say that. Not a lot of performance busts there. But Jamie, what do you make of that? Should that matter if we're trying to decide between a running back and a wide receiver in rounds 2 and 3? Because I thought it would be just the opposite of this.
I'm just thinking of my rankings. And it's a lot of, for me, bust candidates at wide receiver in round 2. And even the guys that I like, I could see the flaws. But you could see, for me, Devontae Adams just because of the potential target share. You could see Deebo Samuel because of the lack of work in the run game and the quarterback change. You could see Tyreek Hill with the quarterback change and just the change in offense. You could see maybe A.J. Brown with the same thing. I know he's more of a round 3 guy, but if Heath is right and Mike Williams is better, Keenan Allen in round 2, Mike Evans, if maybe this Brady thing is worse, or just all the mouths. I mean, you can start to nitpick all these guys. Now, the flip side of that, though, for the running backs is like Saquon Barkley's in round 2, Leonard Fournette's in round 2. We're talking about potentially bad offense for the Giants and a 27-year-old running back in Fournette with what could be a worse offensive line. So you can sort of nitpick, I guess, all these guys, but I would still lean toward the receivers in round 2 from a who has the most likely to succeed versus who has the more likelihood to bust. I still think those receivers are safer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Heath, I thought that the fact that there were so many injuries in those rounds from the wide receivers, and again, over the last 3 years in rounds 2 to 3, 51% of the wide receivers drafted have finished outside the top 24 at the position, and some of them have been huge busts, but most of it injury. And the running backs have performed a lot better, and that's really surprised me. But yeah, the injuries stood out, and also you react. You want to react to that?
I don't think it's going to change the way that I rank players in rounds 2 through 3. Most of my round 3 are wide receivers. I did want to go back to your wide receiver 39 through 50 because I think you were predicting a top 5 wide receiver. I'm not sure you said DJ Moore, who is 44th by Fantasy Pros ADP. So there's your top 5 wide receiver for this year.
I didn't put him in there or Pittman because they are moving up. And in NFC ADP since August 1st, they're higher than that. But yes,
I heard Michael Thomas is 27th overall.
Michael, that was funny. Who was that again?
Pittman.
No, Mike Pittman.
Michael Pittman, right. What's kind of funny about that little blunder yesterday was that I was also looking and I did the same thing. I just didn't say it out loud. And then I skipped Michael Thomas, went all the way down to Michael Gallup. So anyway, all right. So let me promote just a couple things here. We got great content on the website, so please check it out. Sleepers, Breakouts, Bust. We're also going to talk about that on the show next week, but go to cbsports.com/fantasy and check out all of our football content. It's a really amazing thing. The mock drafts for just about every format. You're going to be so prepared for your draft. We've got a mailbag show that I'm recording just after this, basically at 11 a.m. Eastern on Friday. It's going to air on the audio side on Saturday, but it'll catch you up on all the latest news and do some fantasy cops. And our CBS Sports Fantasy Football Commissioner product is amazing. It lets you run your league the way you want. Endless ways to customize your scoring, your rosters, your schedule, and more. You can play against multiple opponents in a week. The scoring settings are there's so many of them. It's unbelievable. You can do a salary cap draft. You can do a snake. You can do keepers. You can do dynasty. Great dynasty format now. Custom flex, IR options, and now this year the pup list is eligible for IR, so that makes things nice and easy. We've got a great league history too. If you want to start your league on CBS, we archive everything basically, and the league history is unlike anything else in the industry. So, so check it out. Go to cbssports.com/fantasy football and get a special offer when you start your league today. You guys have any preseason takeaways from the 2 games last night?
It's tough to be a Traylon Burks guy right now.
What I was going to say was, like, if you were, just as you were a couple of days ago, saying buy the dip on Traylon Burks, I hope somebody negatively reacts to that. Well, the dip's going to get a little bit bigger now. It's going to get even cheaper.
I mean, he's got a lot of proving to do, unfortunately, man. I mean, not only did he play with the backups, into the fourth quarter, they didn't even use him.
My favorite tweet from last night was someone said, "Is Traylon Burks doing cardio?" Because he would just jog on the field and jog back. Field and jog back.
So is there any question that Robert Woods should be the first Titans receiver taken?
No, not anymore.
And I mean, should Robert Woods be moving up the ranking? Should he be, a top?
That's what I'm doing right now.
What?
Huh?
Where?
Not dramatically, but I mean, I don't want to say almost flip-flopping them, but I'm pretty close to that.
I'm probably not going to move him up anymore because I'm too far ahead on him as it is. But I've got him at wide receiver 33, round 7.
He's like 38 for me.
Yeah.
You guys take Allen Lazard or Robert Woods?
Lazard.
I would take Robert Woods.
Any other takeaways from last night's games? One thing I just got to say, Kadarius Toney got hurt again. Didn't play in the game. Got a minor injury, I guess, but he's always hurt, and he's had a pretty inconsistent camp. So I think people should be aware of that because his ADP is rising quite a bit, Kadarius Toney.
I don't know if Kenny Galladay is washed or what's going on, but like the training camp videos we were seeing of I don't want to say it's a lack of effort. It looks like a lack of effort. It might just be that his body is not moving like he wants it to. But he does not look like somebody who's going to play a significant role in an offense.
Yeah.
He looks.
Yeah, he made a play last night. You're talking about the third down near the goal line.
Dropped.
Well, but just like every time he moves.
Yeah, the announcer called it a lazy route, and that's what it was. And he dropped the ball, but he just didn't really run through the route. Could have scored a touchdown.
But I do think it's possible. Like he moves like someone who's just super stiff. It's possible that it's not a lack of effort, that he's just got some health problems. Like he just never fully recovered from something.
Yeah, Schneier's talked about that a lot. He had pretty serious hip surgery a couple years ago.
He does not look like somebody who has the type of flexibility that a regular NFL player has.
All right, that'll do it for our
I wouldn't draft
preseason
him.
recap. That's Kenny Galladay that we have been talking about here. All right, noteworthy differences in ADP comparing fantasy.
One more thing, Mike Davis. Just don't forget about him right now. This has nothing to do with J.K. Dobbins. This is more about Gus Edwards.
I think Mike Davis might be Gus Edwards, yeah.
And Davis clearly can still give you something with your last pick. You know, no one that's going to be a league winner barring a J.K. Dobbins injury. But you brought this up, Heath. I think it was on our running back tiers when Dave was talking about, I think, J.K. Dobbins and a featured role and what you said about Devontae Freeman.
Yeah,
they're going to use somebody if there's nobody there. It's not like they're just going to say, okay, we're going to go, with this Lamar. And he seems to be the preferred guy.
All right, now let's talk about ADP differences. You tell me, who do you side with? You side with the Fantasy Pros ADP or the NFC ADP? NFC being more high-stakes leagues. And this ADP is from August 1st to August 11th, which was 86 drafts. I did not update it this morning, but it's really not going to change much. But so today's the 12th. But all right, Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp are basically tied on NFC as wide receiver 1. Jefferson slightly ahead. On Fantasy Pros, Kupp is ahead of Justin Jefferson. Who do you guys take number 1, Jefferson or Kupp?
Kupp.
Jefferson, but I like the idea of basically tied.
Michael Pittman is wide receiver 10, going 28th overall on NFC since August 1st. He is wide receiver 13, but going 41st overall, 13 picks later on Fantasy Pro. Should he be closer to 28th or 41st? Michael Pittman.
28th.
I've got him 30th, so sounds
okay.
good to me.
23 for me, I think.
Ooh, whoa. DJ Moore is 35th since August 1st on NFC. That makes him wide receiver 14. He's wide receiver 17 on Fantasy Pros, but he's 45th. Should he be closer to 35th or 45th? DJ Moore.
35th.
25th.
Cortland Sutton, 40th on NFC since August 1st. And on Fantasy Pros, which, by the way, I don't know what the date range is, more vague, 68th on Fantasy Pros. Fantasy Pros aggregates a whole bunch of sites, so that's why we use it, but don't know the date range, so it doesn't really account for the latest trends. Anyway, Cortland Sutton, should he be closer to 40th or 68th?
40th.
40th. I've got him 47th.
Where do you have him, Jamie? Cortland Sutton?
In the 40s.
Wide receiver
like 41.
17 right now. So
That's right about where I have him.
okay. How about Jerry Jeudy, his teammate? On NFC, he's going 53rd since August 1st. Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver 26 there. He's actually wide receiver 23 on Fantasy Pros, but he's going 67th. So that means NFC is just more wide receiver heavy than Fantasy Pros. But 53rd, should he be around 5 or around 6 pick, Jerry Jeudy, in a 12-team league?
Round 6.
Yeah, round 6. I've got him 63rd, so that's just about right.
That's interesting. I mean, is he not set up for a huge season now with the Tim Patrick injury?
He is. I mean, absolutely. But I think for me, he's in the group of Mooney and Juju and Bateman, Gabriel Davis. I have Metcalf in that group. So I like all those guys. I have no problem around 5.
Allen Robinson. Okay. Allen Robinson, sorry. Allen Robinson is wide receiver 20 on NFC and wide receiver 29 on Fantasy Pros It's almost a 30 pick difference. Round 4 in NFC for Allen Robinson, again, wide receiver 20, and he's going 70th on Fantasy Pros, wide receiver 29. I know for sure you guys would take Allen Robinson closer to wide receiver 20, right? I mean,
he's in the teens for me.
Yeah, he's like 21 or 22 for me. I've got him at pick 50, so just outside of round 4.
if you can get Allen Robinson at 70th overall, then you do it. How about Gabriel Davis? He is 50th on NFC. That's wide receiver 23 since August 1st, and 79th on Fantasy Pros, wide receiver 33. Should Gabriel Davis be closer to wide receiver 23 and 50th overall, or wide receiver 33 and 79th overall?
23 for me.
We may have is this our first split? Yeah, I've got him 82nd, so I'm definitely closer to 79th.
Okay, looking forward to talking about that. Let's do some ADP review. Let's get it going with Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase as round 1 picks, and Devontae Adams also. He's 11th. So that's 4 wide receivers in round 1. I'm looking at Fantasy Pros, PPR, ADP, and that's what I've used every single year for this exercise. We anticipate it changing, but here it is. Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Devontae Adams. Stephon Diggs just outside the top 12. He's 13th overall in Fantasy Pros ADP. Any beef with the first 13 picks, basically having 5 wide receivers, Heath?
And I'm usually more wide receiver heavy, I feel like, than ADP, but that's not the case for me. I've only got 4. I would not draft Adams in that range. So I think Jamie and I are on the same page on Adams, and we'd rather have Diggs than him, and we don't want to take Adams in the first. I don't really want to take Adams in the first 15 picks.
How safe do you feel with Kupp, Jefferson, and Chase as first round picks?
Extremely safe.
Yeah. I have 0 fear about Kupp and Jefferson in round 1, maybe like 5% fear about Chase.
How do you justify is the wrong word. How do you
I feel attacked?
No, not at all. This has nothing to do with you. How do you explain Cooper Kupp's season just being so much better than anything he had ever done? He was over 100 yards per game, 114.5 yards per game. The previous 2 years, he was at 70.8 and 72.6. He also had, listen to this, Kupp had a 31.5% target share. He had 35.7% of the catches, 40% of the yards, and 39% of the touchdowns. So he even outperformed his target share pretty dramatically. How do you explain it at, what was he, 28 last year? So does it just, I'm not going to call it a red flag, but he didn't exactly follow the normal course of a breakout, Heath. So what do you I know you're going to say Stafford, but go ahead and say it anyway. Cooper Kupp.
No, I think at first I would say Sean McVay. Like, he does things that generate incredible performances. Like what we think of Jared Goff now, and you look at the couple of years that Jared Goff have, and you remember Todd Gurley being 60 points better than any other running back, and you remember Tyler Higbee month where he was the greatest tight end that ever existed. I think it starts with Sean McVay, and then you include the upgrade from Goff to Stafford, and then some of it's just we should not expect that to happen again. There's a reason career years are career years. You're not as good in other years, so it's probably some regression coming.
Well, yeah, I would agree with the regression part, but it's to what level, and that's I think how you have to view Cooper Kupp is just how much is he going to come down. But I mean, we mentioned a guy already that I think is a pretty good case study, and there's certainly many more. Look at where Kenny Golladay is right now. I mean, obviously a lot of it is on him. But look where he went from. He went from Stafford to Daniel Jones. But
Golladay was
I'm joking. No need to explain it. But Stephon Diggs goes to Josh Allen, and look what he becomes. Peyton Manning goes to Denver, and look what Demaryius Thomas and Eric Decker became. It's not just as simple as you're getting a quarterback upgrade. He gave you, a handful of scenarios here of why he got better, but it really could just be, it's finally getting with someone who's going to understand. Like, it was just the perfect setup. The quarterback came in and grasped everything that Sean McVay threw at him, and then it was okay. We went from an 8 with Jared Goff or 7 with Jared Goff to a 10 with Matthew Stafford, and now all these things opened up in the offense. I mean, you even go back to what happened to Robert Woods in Buffalo and Robert Woods with Sean McVay. What happened to Odell Beckham the last couple of years in Cleveland, and then he goes to the Rams. It's this the whole thing coming together, the whole puzzle coming together. And so Kupp, as Heath has pointed out a few times, both you guys have pointed out, I think we all have, where he was a couple of times in his career before, some injuries or just some things happened, start of the season, I think it was 2018, 2019, where he got off to such a great start and then just didn't finish it. It just all fell into place. And so, yes, he will not probably do anything close to this again because, look, he has a better running mate maybe than he's ever had. And that's no disrespect to Robert Woods or Beckham, but Robinson's, had some good seasons clearly. So, if he goes from, 439, as you see here on the YouTube screen, to, 410, 415, he's still a pretty good player.
Fantasy points, yeah. Just to clarify what the 439 was, it's projected fantasy points. Oh, no, that's what he scored last year. Sorry, that's what he scored. Cooper Kupp has now had 3 seasons in his last 4 where he's been top 10 per game in non-PPR, top 11 per game in half PPR, and top 15 per game in full PPR. He's had 2 top 7 seasons. He had a pretty underrated career before this. I guess you mentioned Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs last year was the number 10 wide receiver per game. Pretty, he wasn't a bust, but I think he was a little disappointing. And Josh Allen had a worse season as a passer than he did in 2020 when Diggs, had a better year in fantasy. Diggs is exactly what concerns me with Kupp. And it's our job to have some concerns, right? I would take Kupp number 1 at wide receiver. I'd probably take him 4th or 5th overall. But Diggs is what concerns me because there wasn't a logical explanation for it. He just was worse. And that could happen to Kupp. So, it just makes me say, let's not overdraft him. But you know what I mean? I can't give you
it's a fair point because
it's going to be worse. He's just going to be worse. Regression.
It's a fair point because the targets were almost identical for Diggs. It was 166 and 164.
Allen was worse, and that's. I just think the passing game will probably take a little bit of a step back. Because
the biggest concern obviously is Stafford's elbow right now.
Sure, right.
And I think I made this comparison on HQ yesterday. There's some comparisons you can draw between the first 2 running backs and the first 2 receivers. Taylor, Young, ascending. Jefferson, Young, ascending. They feel safer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Than Kupp because of Stafford's situation and McCaffrey because of his injury situation. So if you are a little bit concerned, there's certainly a great fallback option. And so it's easy to see Jefferson passing Kupp this year because, as we're all well aware, the coach who was part of the staff is now the one calling plays. Staff for Kupp is now calling plays for the Vikings, and Jefferson entering his 3rd year. You noted this, Adam, for the guys in a lower range, but I mean, I've done this every year I've worked at this place. 3rd-year receivers, there's always guys that even at a peak level can take a next step. It could be a career season touchdowns for Jefferson on top of what he's done. There are certainly ways for him to still get better. So if you are concerned about Kupp, and clearly there is concern as we've seen the ADP get closer, then take Jefferson. It's 1 and 1A for me. I have no problem taking Jefferson over Kupp.
Okay, so just to finish up round 1, you guys are fine with people taking Jefferson over Kupp, but what if they took Chase over Kupp?
No. I'm not close to that yet. Stafford would have to be guaranteed to miss time.
Okay. And where should Devontae Adams and Stephon Diggs be drafted, if not in round 1? When in round 2? Yeah, but when in round 2?
I think Diggs early round 2 is fine. Early round 2 is fine. Late round 1. Adams, I'm fine with him top 15 in PPR, a little bit closer to 20 in non-PPR.
Okay, so sorry, Heath, I cut you off.
No, it's good.
But I have CeeDee Lamb ahead of Adams.
How many wide receivers should be taken ahead of Travis Kelce?
3.
2.
Would you rather start your team off with Jamar Chase and DeAndre Swift, or Joe Mixon and CeeDee Lamb?
Chase and Swift.
Chase and Swift.
Does that change in different formats? Maybe you knock Swift down and half.
You said DJ Moore instead of Lamb. He might have said.
That's a good point.
Does that change in different formats? Like maybe Swift and we did a non-PPR draft yesterday, and I didn't even want to take Swift. He went 23rd
I'm not.
22nd.
Yeah, it doesn't change for me because I'm not as sure as everybody else is that Swift's value is the fact that he's going to catch 80 passes.
Okay. All right. Let's go to round 2 then. Round 2 of ADP at wide receiver is Diggs at 13, Deebo Samuel 17, Lamb 18, Tyreek Hill 20th, and that would be it. So it's Diggs at 13, Deebo at 17, Lamb 18, Tyreek Hill 20. So no Mike Evans, no Keenan Allen. This is in PPR. Jamie, your thoughts on this group?
They're all too high for me. No. CeeDee Lamb is too low, but the other two are too high. I like them.
Sorry. Hold on one second, because just to clarify here, because what you're looking at on YouTube is 3 receivers. For the audio, I did say 4 receivers because Diggs is technically in round 2. So you can start with Diggs at 13, Deebo at 17, Lamb 18, Tyreek Hill 20. Sorry, Jamie, go ahead.
I'm expecting a huge season for CeeDee Lamb, so I put him ahead of this group. Not significantly, but enough, almost around. I would put Adams behind Lamb, so he would be a round 2 pick for me. And then Samuel and Tyreek Hill, I'm just slightly concerned, getting less concerned about Tyreek, because I think Mike McDaniel's offense will help him still, more so than Tua maybe. But I'm just worried about Deebo. I just think that he's going to be a very good player, but if you just take away the rushing production to whatever degree, and then whatever he loses as a receiver, especially if the other 2 guys stay healthy in terms of Kittle and Ayuk, I think he'll still be a top 10 guy, but I don't know if he'll be a top 5 guy like he's being in the range that he's in.
Yeah, I've got Deebo. I've got all these guys lower than where they are, but not by much. Deebo's 21, Lamb's 20, Tyreek's 24. But also, like, is this just Fantasy Pros PPR ADP?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I'm just a little bit behind on all these guys, but not too far off. I've got them all in round 2. There's definitely reason for concern with Deebo, but of this group, I think he also has the most upside.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill's played some games without Patrick Mahomes. In 2017, he played a full season without Patrick Mahomes, and he was good with Alex Smith, who had a nice year. He was a top 10 wide receiver per game. Tyreek Hill was 5th in non-PPR, 8th in full PPR. That was 2017. Since then, you've had a few games here or there. In 2019, he had 6 catches for 76 yards. He had 6 catches for 140 and a touchdown. And then he had 74 yards and a touchdown in the Denver game in 2019 when Mahomes left with an injury. So he's been good. He hasn't been elite, but he's been very good. Here's what I want to do with this group. I want to look at rounds 2 and 3. And I think you've got, if we throw Deebo Samuel in with the established group, I think you've got the establishment versus the up-and-comers, right? So I'm not going to make any case for Devontae Adams, Diggs, or Lamb to go behind the others.
Lamb would be an up-and-comer, wouldn't he?
Yes. That does complicate things. If we get past CeeDee Lamb and we look at this group, because you know what? Because I'm pretty confident I know where CeeDee Lamb's going to get drafted. I don't think he's making it past mid-round 2 in most picks. I don't think he's getting out of round in most leagues. I don't think he's getting out of round 2, out of the top 24 in hardly any leagues, right? But I think you've got a group here of players that I could see more disagreement on, and that would be Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, and Keenan Allen. Let's call them the establishment. Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen. And then let's compare them to the up-and-comers. A.J. Brown. Why would he be in a different group than Deebo Samuel? But just bear with me. A.J. Brown, Michael Pittman, T. Higgins, and DJ Moore. All right, so it's 4 on 4, right? It's Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen versus A.J. Brown, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, and T. Higgins. How do you see that 4 on 4 game going, Heath? Who wins?
I'm picturing like the fight in Anchorman.
Yeah. No touching of the hair and face.
Or like Avengers Civil War.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what to make of the way that you've framed this, but I would say that my favorite from the group is DJ Moore. My least favorite from the group is T. Higgins. The established guys are kind of in the middle.
But the established guys are going earlier. So would you
So
rather
I'm not drafting the established guys.
Yeah, would you rather spend a round 2 pick on Debo, Tyreek Hill, maybe Mike Evans? I see his ADP is round 3, but he and Keenan Allen and PPR could easily be in round 2. Or would you rather spend a round 3 pick on the AJ Brown, DJ Moore, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman group?
I'd rather draft Moore and Pittman.
How about you, Jamie?
I mean, you tell me I get Lamb, Moore, and Pittman. I'll take that all day long.
But are you going to pass up Mike Evans for DJ Moore?
I think, again, this is where you have to know who you're drafting with, because I know when I'm drafting with Heath, I'm not getting Mark Andrews. It's like I know certain things. I was very surprised in our pick by pick, and as we reviewed it yesterday or 2 days ago, he would not take David Montgomery over DJ Moore again. So I was pleasantly surprised to get DJ Moore in round 3. So there are certain things you have to know who you're drafting with and how people.
I don't know who I'm drafting with. How can I?
If you don't know who you're drafting with, then I think you have to rely on ADP a little bit, because you have to think that people are going based on what the averages are or the site that you play on because of what the rank list may look like. And so there are certain things that factor into play. So if you're just thinking, okay, I'm going to be like, I know when I'm drafting with other analysts. So I was in the flex draft last week. There are certain guys that I was targeting. I was targeting Michael Pittman because I know the industry, forget about the regular fantasy player. I know the industry is higher on Michael Pittman. So I didn't think I could wait to get him. So I took him in round 3. His ADP is round 4.
Yeah. Okay. What do you want to come away with if you're going to take wide receivers in round 2 and 3? I mean, should you mix up a little bit of safety and some upside, some unproven upside, or should you just
I'd
take
like guys who could be top 5?
But you keep saying unproven upside. Michael Pittman's coming off a pretty solid sophomore season. DJ Moore's had a very solid career. He just hasn't scored touchdowns. He's getting a quarterback upgrade. It's not like these guys have not done. We're not talking about Drake London.
All right. I said unproven upside. You're right, but just for lack of a better term, I guess. But to be fair, those guys have not done anything like what Tyreek Hill and Mike Evans and Keenan Allen have done. They have not even finished as top 8 per game receivers. Or maybe
I'm just trying to make the point. Like there's you're saying we're taking chances or we're putting it out there that taking chances. Like we kind of know what we're getting with these guys.
You're drafting them to do something they've never done before.
True.
Which is fine, which you should do. I mean, that's how fantasy football works. But Mike Evans and Keenan Allen and Tyreek Hill and Debo Samuel have done it before. AJ Brown on a per game basis has done it before, but he's also a guy who almost half the time he's under 60 yards. That's not quite that much, but he's an inconsistent player going to a run heavy offense, which of course he's been on before. Michael Pittman and DJ Moore, we're thinking they're going to have their best seasons ever, but they've never been as good as Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, Debo Samuel, and Tyreek Hill. So, do you mix and match there and take the established veteran and the breakout candidate, or do you just not care about that and you just take your 2 favorite players?
I just take my favorite players.
Yeah, but I think it also goes back to, and ADP reflects that, is I think most people were going to gravitate toward Tyreek Hill and Mike Evans and, I don't know, AJ Brown, because he's not maybe as household. But you tend to gravitate toward what you know. And so if somebody sees a rank list or an ADP list or whatever they're looking at, unless someone has, like Heath has sunk Gabriel Davis, for example, by comparison. So if they trust Heath, they're going to probably say, okay, I'm going to avoid Gabriel Davis. But if you're looking at like an ADP list and you see Tyreek Hill is 7th or 8th, whatever he's listed at, 10th, and you're at that point at the turn, or maybe late round 2, and it's Tyreek Hill and AJ Brown, or Tyreek Hill and Michael Pittman for me. Okay, I don't want to trust the Colts receiver. Why would I take the Colts receiver? What has he done?
So how do you rank Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, Michael Pittman?
In PPR, Pittman is ahead of them.
AJ Brown, who?
Tyreek Hill and Michael Pittman.
AJ, he's a receiver for the Eagles.
Hill, Pittman, Brown.
But that's not important right now.
I go Pittman, Hill, Brown.
Wow. You guys have a lot of faith in Michael Pittman. Look, I like him too, but to take him over those guys is a big leap.
I said Hill, Pittman, Brown.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay. And where's Debo Samuel?
Ahead of AJ Brown, behind Tyreek Hill.
Behind CeeDee Lamb, ahead of Tyreek Hill.
Ahead of Michael Pittman.
Yes.
Pittman's ahead of him for me.
And you really
So
like it.
basically, Jamie is to Michael Pittman as Heath is to DJ Moore.
Seems that way, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have him ranked as high,
But yeah,
it's funny. Like we sit here and say this, and imagine a year ago somebody saying, "Man, Deebo Samuel over all these guys." It's like you have to sort of take chances on certain guys and situations.
Yeah, the Michael Pittman love on this podcast reminds me of Calvin Ridley 2 years ago, where he was a fourth round pick, and we just kept saying breakout, breakout, breakout. And it was like, well, I can't justify taking Calvin Ridley over this guy. Can I really take him over this guy? He might be getting too high. I'm like, no, take him. He ended up being wide receiver 5 or 6. I just don't know that Michael Pittman, even though he's got the same quarterback that Ridley had, I don't know that he's the same player. I was a little discouraged by his lack of big plays last year. But look, I don't want to judge him on his second year in the league. This is when he's third year in. Let's see if he can start making some more big plays, score more touchdowns. He's got a terrific opportunity and he's going to get a ton of targets.
I will say format matters for me in this because I have all the guys we listed ahead of Pittman in non-PPR.
Okay.
I think format maybe matters for Deebo as much as it does for anybody. I could understand an argument for Deebo as an early second round pick in non-PPR.
Yes, he is a second round pick for me in non-PPR. He is the highest of the guys that we've listed in non-PPR.
We can't get into everything today, but if you want to listen to our Everyone is a Bust episodes, we tell you what concerns us about Deebo Samuel. To sum it up, most of his receiving production, his great receiving production, was early in the year when 1, Ayuk was in the doghouse, and 2, Kittle was hurt. And then, of course, you have the Trey Lance factor. He's going to throw fewer touchdowns. He's going to throw for fewer yards. He's going to run more in. So that does concern us about him. It's why if you want to see our drafts, Deebo's closer to a third-round pick. All right, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we are going to go faster because we're already 42 minutes in. But we have a lot more players to talk about here. We'll get into round 3, round 4. With great opportunities here to draft league-winning wide receivers. It happens all the time in rounds 3, 4, 5, and even 6. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. Round 3 ADP is some of the guys we've already talked about, so we can probably skip a lot of it. But A.J. Brown, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman. Then we go into round 4. A.J. Brown, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman. All of them you could find with there. In round 3, even earlier in some cases.
All those guys in round 3 for me.
Okay. So round 4 is Pittman is a round 4 pick right now in Fantasy Pros, but round 3 in NFC. But Pittman, Jalen Waddle. Interesting group here. Jalen Waddle. Tell me, as I say a name, your interest level in drafting him in round 4 in a 12-team league, which is 39 to 48 in picks. Jalen Waddle.
Not in round 4 for me.
3.
No, you can't do a meter here. There's too many numbers being thrown
There's
around.
no meter. Okay. Well, because I've got him in round 4, but at the end of round 4, I'm probably not going to draft him in round 4. But if somebody took my first 45 players in order and I had the 46th pick, I would take him in round 4.
All right, that's Jalen Waddle. Deontay Johnson.
Not in round 4.
Almost exactly the same way I feel about Jalen Waddle. So however you want to quantify that without putting a number on it.
How about Terry McLaurin?
Yep. They're back to back.
Yeah,
to back.
late round 4.
DJ Moore. Round 2 for Heath.
Round 3.
Round 3 for Jamie. Seriously, round 2 for Heath. We love DJ Moore. DK Metcalf.
Who do you like better, Adam, Pittman or Moore?
I think I like DJ Moore better.
Yes.
But I think Pittman's probably a little safer.
Have I told you how much I value your opinion, Adam? Your football mind.
I think you value it more than you realize. I think sometimes I make you go, "Oh, interesting." Yeah. I'd love to have either of them in late round 3 if I can get them.
I don't want to take DK Metcalf in round 5, so not in round 4 for sure.
Yeah, not in round 4.
All right, so I just gave you Waddle, Deontay, McLaurin, Moore, and Metcalf, and the only one that you guys really wanted to draft in round 4, or at least the beginning portion of round 4, was DJ Moore, and he goes earlier than that for you guys. So who do you draft in round 4, if not them?
Mike Williams and Cortland Sutton.
I was going to say there are 3 wide receivers you've not mentioned yet who I have a round ahead of those guys. So
yeah, Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, so who are they?
Brandon Cooks, Chris Godwin, and Mike Williams.
But not Cortland Sutton for you?
I've got Cortland Sutton in round 4, but I don't have him quite as high as those guys.
For me, it is Michael Thomas, Allen Robinson, Cooks, Williams, Sutton, and Godwin.
All right, yeah, and this is really important here. Feel free to stray from ADP when you get to this range, because I think rounds 4 through 6, I say it all the time, it's a great round historically for receivers. You get a lot of good players here, but the ADP within this round within this range, rounds 4 through 6, doesn't really matter that much. You got a lot of guys who are similar, have similar upside. Take your guy. Unfortunately, last year, we liked Robert Woods better than Cooper Kupp. Is that true for everyone? I know it's true for me.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and they were in this range, and if you took Cooper Kupp ahead of Robert Woods, you were smart. Heath, what were you going to say?
No, I was trying to remember. That's probably true.
Yeah, we loved Robert Woods. We got that one wrong, but that's okay. We loved a lot of players that were right in that range. But anyway, ADP on Fantasy Pros has Pittman, who we love, Waddle, Deontay, McLaurin, DJ Moore, and DK Metcalf. We're saying instead of Deontay, Waddle, McLaurin, and Metcalf, you should consider Cooks, Sutton, Mike Williams, Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, and Cortland Sutton in some order. Which brings us to round 5, which I guess would be the best round in fantasy football history, according to Fantasy Pros. Mike Williams, Brandon Cooks, Chris Godwin. Not Cortland Sutton, though, but Mike Williams, Brandon Cooks, and Chris Godwin. Jamie, what do we expect from Chris Godwin?
If healthy, a potential top 10 wide receiver, with the caveat being that he's still going to be the target leader for the team. This is an extremely talented receiving core. If Julio Jones and Russell Gage stay healthy, the only reason I put Gage in there is because he's banged up. But obviously, Julio's had a hard time staying healthy the last couple of seasons. But my goodness, you know what Chris Godwin has meant to Tom Brady. You know what the slot receiver has been in this offense. And so if he's right, and clearly he's trending in the right direction, you're getting a steal if you get him in round 5 potentially. I mean, Adam, you were certainly the biggest Chris Godwin guy here, and you were making a case for him back in, March, pre-NFL draft, the drafts that we did. Take him in round 2. If he's right, he's going to be a top, I think he kept saying top 7 wide receiver.
Yeah, I'll tell you the stat that convinced me is what he did in week 7 through 14 without Antonio Brown. A little bit of Rob Gronkowski. Gronk played 4 games. Godwin was on pace for 180 targets and 141 catches. Like, just bonkers numbers that I wouldn't expect him to repeat, but I could see him being around 10 targets per game. But then Julio Jones, I have decent expectations for him, so I think that lowers it. But basically, a healthy Chris Godwin without Antonio Brown on the field is a target hog, a PPR machine, a borderline round 1 pick. And he's been, by the way, he was wide receiver 2 in fantasy in 2019. So he's got the pedigree.
He was better per game than Evans last year as well.
Yeah. And I'll tell you one other thing. Antonio Brown, Jacob Gibbs pointed this out. Antonio Brown, on a per route basis, was one of the best receivers in football last year. Julio has not been quite that good. And Antonio Brown is like a lot to replace. So, it's a huge opportunity for the remaining Bucs wide receivers, basically, is the point. Anything else to say? We should talk about Mike Williams, Heath. You're not as concerned about Mike Williams as Dave and I are, for example. But why are you comfortable with him in round 4?
Why are you concerned about him?
I'm concerned about his inconsistencies and his ADOT. I think it matters for a player like him. If he's going to be more of a downfield threat, he's going to be up and down. In the beginning of the year, the first 5 games of the season, he was the number 2 wide receiver in fantasy, Mike Williams. And it coincided with a much lower ADOT, which was unusual for him. The rest of the season, he was outside the top 40. And I know that there were he was inconsistent, and his ADOT was higher. So I want to see a profile of Mike Williams. What was the quote that he was going to play the Michael Thomas role, right, going into the year? Because they're bringing in the Saints coach.
I believe he did that most of the first 5 weeks and a big portion of the second half of the season. I get so irritated when you say he was outside the top 40 after week 5.
He was.
Because on a per game basis, he was wide receiver 19 from week 10 through 18.
Yeah, but you're forgetting about
hurt his knee week 5, played through it. They said he wasn't right.
It could be it.
4 weeks later, after just an absolute abomination of a month, he was a number 2 wide receiver for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and he had 5 games in his last. He had 4 games in his last 6 with 63 or fewer yards, and 2 massive games with over 100 yards. And I just feel like he's going to be a little frustrating if he's still the downfield guy. That's my point. And I think fantasy managers will be a little annoyed by it. At the same time, he had one of the worst green zone conversion rates in the NFL. He probably could have had a 13 touchdown season if he had just caught the ball more. So I do see a lot to like about him. But you guys really like Mike Williams, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it. I think the touchdowns will certainly matter, and I think he'll catch more of those opportunities. But the contract that they gave him, I think, speaks to what they think of him. The quarterback that he's attached to is certainly fantastic, and he's proven, with the big season and catching the ball yardage wise, he's proven it with a 10 touchdown season, and he was on his way last year to just being an absolute monster.
Yeah.
So, you see the heights. I don't know. I do struggle, honestly, with Williams and Sutton because I'm expecting Sutton to be the DK Metcalf to Russell Wilson for Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
So I really struggle with those two guys, but it's hard to overlook that Williams has already done it, and I like his quarterback better. So they're back to back for me, but I would give Williams the edge.
Williams got a bigger contract than Deontay Johnson, right?
I
don't know about per year,
deal, right?
but 3-year deal for Williams, 2-year deal for Deontay. So
a 2-year deal, right? Okay, so we like the wide receivers there in round 5.
And I think like the last thing I would say is like we like Mike Williams. The more important thing to me is that the Chargers, Justin Herbert, that they like Mike Williams, obviously.
Eckler said that with us on HQ.
Yep.
We had Austin Eckler on CBS Sports HQ, and I was asking about both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and he was just raving about Mike Williams. Understandably so, it's his teammate, but just so thrilled that they got paid based on what he's done.
All right, in round 6 is Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. As I mentioned earlier, Sutton and Jeudy are on the rise and may not really be available in round 6, but Cooper, Jeudy, Sutton, Marquise Brown, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And this is actually a wide receiver round, about 8 of them. So let's take a look. I'll say it. I'll start over. Amari Cooper.
Are we doing do I want to draft him?
Yeah. Let's do that. Amari Cooper.
Round 6, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Amari Cooper, no chance, right?
No.
Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton.
I think though, because I thought about this last night. There was the little Jimmy G, maybe Cleveland. If Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback, Amari Cooper round 6, you good with that, Jamie?
Yes,
I think so too.
But not much higher though. Like
No.
he wouldn't be in what he wouldn't be in the range he would be if Deshaun Watson, no issues.
All right, how about Jeudy and Sutton in round 6? Sutton, I know for sure you guys would take earlier. What about Jeudy?
Jeudy round. I mean, I have Jeudy. I think right like 60. So run on the borderline in round 4, round 5, and round 6.
I've got him 63rd, so really like him in round 6.
And I'm sorry, he has to speak for you, but you would take Sutton before round 6, right?
Oh yeah, I'd take Sutton in round 4.
Okay. I got a little confused there. Marquise Brown.
It's a good deal. I like him in
perfectly
5.
fine here. I take him in round 5, but perfectly fine.
Yep.
Oh, all right. We like Marquise Brown. How about Amon-Ra St. Brown? I acted as if Marquise Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown have the same last name, where they definitely do not. Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I like him in round 7.
I like him in round 7 too, but I'm okay if somebody takes him here. It's where he goes earlier than this that drives me nuts.
And I think because there was the report that came out yesterday that Jameson Williams is definitely going to miss week 1.
Yes.
Which we expected. But the difference will be, does Jameson Williams start on the pup? If he doesn't, then I probably don't even like St. Brown in round 7. But if he does, then I'm good with this range.
Okay. Darnell Mooney, round 6.
Perfectly fine with it. I would take him in round 5, but
I'd take him in round 5.
But you'd take Mooney ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Would you take Mooney ahead of Jerry Jeudy or Marquise Brown?
not Marquise, but Jeudy, yes.
I've got him one spot ahead of Marquise and one round ahead of Jeudy.
I have my rank. I'm looking at it right now. Marquise Brown, Darnell Mooney, Juju, Davis, Bateman, Jeudy.
Okay. Sorry, not Cortland Sutton. Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen in round 6.
Sure.
Yeah. He's right where he belongs.
Said it last year. didn't exactly come to fruition because he was really good per game. Felt like he had more bust potential than almost anyone. I think we said like he's one of the most likely players drafted in his range last year to be dropped. There are a ton of warnings. I mean, to sum up Adam Thielen, pretty much all he does is catch touchdowns.
Dave made a little slip on HQ like last week, I think. And he said, we were talking about different formats, I think. And he said, the high volume pass catching guys like Hunter Renfrow and Adam Thielen. What?
Oh, that's not him.
He just made a mistake, but it was just funny. I was like, what?
But I don't know if that's like he had some weird games, but like
You
if
can't
he
think
did
of
what
him
he
like
did
that,
last
though.
year in round 6, I'm good with it.
Actually, to be fair to Dave, if you take away the last 2 games of the year for Thielen, where he left both early with injury, before that, he was on pace for 97 catches. 1,000.
But you don't think of him like that.
No,
though.
you don't think of him like that, but he was crushing it. He was the number 15 per game wide receiver, and that was with really limping to the finish line with 2 games where he played 8% of the snaps and 37% of the snaps. He would have been a top 10 wide receiver if he just had his healthy game pace. So he keeps crushing expectations, but so much of it is touchdowns. But he's going at the end of round 6. So he's going right before Allen Robinson, who's late in round 6. And I know you guys think that's way too late for Allen Robinson. He's a round 4 pick for you guys. So would you take Adam Thielen or Jerry Jeudy?
I would take Judy.
I've got Thielen just a couple spots higher.
Okay, we'll talk about more wide receivers in just a moment. Let's hear about something fun from Paramount Plus.
Let's save the world together.
Show him some swagger.
Step into the spotlight.
I hope your dad has insurance.
Secret Headquarters. Rated PG. Now streaming on Paramount Plus.
Taking a look at round 7 now in average draft position. After Adam Thielen and Allen Robinson at the end of round 6, we've got DeAndre Hopkins, who is suspended for 6 games. Michael Thomas, and it's hard to even know what to make of it, but Michael Thomas, I'm going to say, all right, what's a prediction for where Michael Thomas will end up? Round in a 12-team league round?
4.
5.
All right, Hopkins, Michael Thomas, Hunter Renfrow.
There was a report, I think, yesterday that he's been their best player in camp.
Michael Thomas.
Yes.
Yeah, people are just not buying into it. I kind of get it. He has not caught a touchdown in 2 seasons. He's been an injured mess for 2 straight seasons.
Totally.
And
older, new quarterback.
I always said, I can't really think of a comparison for him, but then people say, what about AJ Green? And that is a pretty damn good comparison. And it's a terrifying one. AJ Green was an elite receiver. Even in that age 30 season, he averaged 77 yards per game, which is outstanding. But he played 9 games, missed the entire 2019 season, came back in 2020 and 2021, and has been a shell of himself. And that's AJ Green, who was an elite receiver. Difference is he was a little older than Michael Thomas. When he came back from those injuries, he was 32. Michael Thomas is 29, I believe, or maybe 30. I think he's 29. But that is a little scary. So, Jamie, are you at all afraid that we're drinking a little bit too much Michael Thomas Kool-Aid and we could overdraft him?
Yes, overdraft him for sure because of the training camp reports, the way that he looks, and what his past history is. But I think by overdrafting him, you're taking him in round 3. Now, I'm comfortable doing that, but I don't think most people are. I think if you're drafting him in round 4, which is where I think he's going to end up climbing to, I don't mind that. Obviously, you get him later than that, it's perfect. But he's going to, by the time we get to August, he's going to leap ahead of this by a lot. I'm sorry, by late August, excuse me.
Okay. So how about Michael Thomas versus Allen Robinson?
I like Thomas better in PPR, Robinson in non-PPR.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, more ADP from this round 7. And I had said on yesterday's show, round 7, You don't barely get any top 12 receivers at this point, but you're starting to see some more top 24 receivers. Last 2 years have been pretty good, round 7 through 9. So the list is Hopkins, Michael Thomas, Hunter Renfrow, Gabriel Davis, Juju Smith-Schuster. That's round 7. Heath, you're the low guy on Gabriel Davis. Are you okay with him in this range with Hopkins, Michael Thomas, Hunter Renfrow, and Juju?
I have him in the same. Well, I see Elijah Moore in the graphic. That's why I'm in the same range as Elijah Moore, well behind Thomas and Juju, and a full round at least ahead of DeAndre Hopkins. I'm pretty much out on Hopkins. So I think Gabriel Davis fits really well for me in that Elijah Moore, Drake London, used to be Treylon Burks, may still be Treylon Burks, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, that range of young wide receivers who could pop, but there's a pretty low floor.
By the way, as we look at this group, Hopkins being different, you gotta ask yourself how you feel about him. But give me a wide receiver to pair with Hopkins real quick. Rondale Moore?
To get you through?
Yeah.
Marquise Brown?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
To get you through Hopkins the first 6 weeks of the season?
What do you think about
Robert
Rondale
Woods.
Moore? Robert Woods? Okay.
Jalen Tolbert?
Oh, okay. All right.
That could be a good one. Maybe Lazard.
Yeah, we haven't called
Till
it.
one of the young guys steps up.
All right, that's fine. So when you look at this group here of Michael Thomas, Hunter Renfrow, Gabriel Davis, Juju Smith-Schuster, Elijah Moore, who's right on the border of round 7 and 8, are these starters for you guys? Or are they bench players? Juju Smith-Schuster, Gabe Davis, etc.
Thomas and Juju are starters.
I think Thomas for sure is a starter. I think I said this yesterday that depending on the build that I have, my roster construction, if I do go a little bit more toward running backs and then get a quarterback or tight end early and only one wide receiver, which is not what I usually do, I would be perfectly fine with these guys as a number 2, but I got to really hit home runs at the other spots.
Anybody take Hunter Renfrow in this range or wait a little longer?
Wait longer.
This is not far from where I've got Renfrow the next round. So yeah.
All right, round 8, Elijah Moore kicks it off. Devontae Smith, Tyler Lockett, Rashad Bateman.
That's a steal. My God.
Yeah.
Love Bateman there.
Bateman or Elijah Moore?
Bateman.
How do you feel about Devontae Smith, Elijah Moore, and Tyler Lockett?
Getting a little bit more concerned with Devontae because of this groin injury. Lockett, too soon for me by a round. And who's the other one you said? Elijah Moore? He's my favorite of that group.
Yeah, he's my favorite of that group. This is right where I would put Elijah and Lockett. I agree with Jamie. Like, I have Devonta Smith technically like the last pick of round 8, but I don't feel good about it at all.
Yeah, I think Bateman really stands out just based on what I know from you guys. You guys love him here, as you said. Another guy that we haven't said yet, who in our drafts goes a lot earlier, is Allen Lazard. We have a split on that, though. Jamie's higher on Lazard than Heath. But just to give all of you listeners some names that if you were drafting with us, they'd be coming off the board around here or even earlier. Rashad Bateman would be one of them. Allen Lazard would definitely be one of them. Maybe probably not Russell Gage now that Julio's there.
I would take Garrett Wilson in this range, but I'm the only one.
Okay.
So,
all right. So let's keep going then to round 9. Drake London, Brandon Ayuk, terrific finish to the season for Brandon Ayuk. Robert Woods.
I'm more excited about him.
This is a good round. Drake London, Brandon Ayuk, Robert Woods, Christian Kirk. I would love for any of these guys to be my 4th receiver. How do you feel about that? Drake London, Ayuk, Robert Woods, Christian Kirk.
Totally agree. I think if you go with 3 receivers early and then you start to, build your running back depth, quarterback, tight end, and you want to say, okay, I can still get a good wide receiver as a flex, any one of these guys qualify.
that's yeah, like Woods and London specifically really loving this range.
How about round 10? Chase Claypool, Treylon Burks, Allen Lazard, Chris Olave, and Russell Gage. Claypool, Treylon Burks, Lazard, Olave, Russell Gage.
Lazard is well ahead of this group for me.
I don't really even like drafting Lazard, but his is like 2 to 3 rounds later than he should be going.
So, Heath, do you like any of the previous round ahead of Lazard? London, Ayuk, Robert Woods, Christian Kirk.
I have Woods and London ahead of him, yes.
What about you,
What is your trepidation with Lazard?
I am always it's the same thing it is with Gabriel Davis. Like the lack of anything showing an ability to command a target share that would justify starting him in fantasy.
So you would take Garrett Wilson over him?
I have Garrett Wilson and Lazard back to back. So yeah, I would. I'm mostly gravitating, not entirely, but mostly gravitating towards the younger wide receivers at this point in the draft. I think when we see
that you would
guys
take the rookie with Zach Wilson over the potential number one guy with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I don't. That's the other way to look at it. But I think, and Adam maybe even can look at this, but I think most of the guys that emerge after round 6 or after round 7 are generally younger guys and not veterans.
Yeah, you know what? I can look at the round 7 through 9 success stories. Last year, one of them was Brandon Cooks. Let's see.
Well, Brandon Cooks is just always.
Can you get a top 24 wide receiver in round 7 through 9? Here are the guys who have come out of round 7 through 9 the last 2 seasons and have finished top 24. You want overall or per game?
I think I'd prefer per game.
Okay, I have both. Brandon Cooks and Deontay Johnson in 2020 were top 24 per game. And top 24 overall were Cooks, Johnson, CeeDee Lamb, and Marvin Jones. In 2021, the per game standouts in this range, round 7 through 9, were Antonio Brown, Jamar Chase, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Waddle, and Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks.
I mean, Brandon Cooks is just the constant.
Yeah.
He's
a lot of young guys there. Antonio Brown, Jamar Chase, not young. Jamar Chase, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Waddle. Oh, yeah, in that sense, that is true. But Brandon Cooks is a noteworthy exception. And Lazard just has a different opportunity than he's ever had before. I really think he's going to lead the team in touchdown catches.
Lazard is the kind of guy who I'm probably going to miss on when they hit.
Okay.
Just because he's a veteran who hasn't ever done anything. Okay.
So then after this range, let's take a look at just some more wide receivers after pick 100. You tell me if you like them. We're going to end the show here. I already mentioned him previously, but Chase Claypool. Do you ever draft Chase Claypool?
Yes, but he's look. If Trubisky is better than what Roethlisberger has been, all these Steelers guys are going to be fun though.
I will be moving George Pickens ahead of Claypool tomorrow. I had him back to back after last week. But I like 2 guys you haven't mentioned yet. Kadarius Toney and Nico Collins, I would take over Chase Claypool.
Kadarius Toney is 120th or so on Fantasy Pros. Since August 1st on NFC, Kadarius Toney is going 82nd overall. So, this is why I brought it up earlier, because he has really risen, but he's having a pretty inconsistent camp, and he's already hurt, and he's just always hurt. But the talent is huge and totally get taken. If you get him at 120, it's a no-brainer.
Yep.
Russell Gage or Julio Jones? Who would you rather have?
Julio now.
Julio.
How about Sky Moore? Garrett Wilson's in this range. He likes him. Chris Olave, the rookies other than Drake London. And I'll throw Traylon Burks should be in this group too. If Drake London, just rank your rookies.
London, Burks, Moore, Olave, Wilson.
London, man, I'm not trying to figure out how far Burks is going to fall, but I don't think he's going to fall that far. So London, Wilson, Burks, Moore, Tolbert.
And Tyler Boyd. Let's see, some other veterans. Tyler Boyd, Jarvis Landry, Michael Gallup, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Devontae Parker, Mecole Hardman, Jacoby Myers. Any names that jump out at you?
I constantly find myself drafting Gallup and Jamison Williams at the end of our drafts if you know you have an IR slot, do that.
How about Kenny Golladay?
Boyd too. Boyd is. I mean, you hear me say this a lot about Josh Palmer and KJ Osborne. That's Boyd on steroids.
Yeah, and I haven't even said their
Boyd
names.
is that on steroids.
You like Josh Palmer and KJ Osborne, Kenny Golladay, DJ Chark, Rondale Moore, Jamison Williams, Jahan Dotson. We didn't mention him.
DJ Chark could be the guy to pair with DeAndre Hopkins. He's had a good camp, and if there's no Jamison Williams.
Well, any expectations for Rondale Moore? I mean, is he worth taking a flyer on?
Absolutely.
Flyer,
I
yeah.
mean, the report that came out this week about him playing the Christian Kirk role. Kingsbury told me in the spring he wants to use him in a Deebo Samuel role. They're going to put the ball in his hands however they possibly can. It's just a matter of will he do more with it this year than he did last year? Because last year was terrible.
Dave mentioned Isaiah McKenzie as a sleeper. I
Absolutely.
think he said
Nico Collins.
Or one of you said it. Yep. Randall Cobb could get a bunch
KJ
of
Hamler.
green zone targets. He was used there a lot, actually. Romeo Dobbs. KJ Hamler said, what about Romeo Dobbs?
Yeah, for sure.
I've got him ahead of Christian Watson now.
Same.
What a shame, Christian Watson. Get on the field, Christian Watson. All right. I think I'm pretty satisfied. We have plenty more time to talk about more wide receivers. Thank you very much for watching and listening, everybody. And we will talk to you. On Saturday. We have the mailbag that I'm recording in 37 minutes. I'm going to try anyway with Dan Schneier. Talk to you later on